I'm so happy to be here. I'm so grateful to remember that we still have those opportunities to actually be part of an artist world where we can talk, where we can share, where we can discuss, where we can open up and bring ourselves, because at least in my eyes, this is in art what we do. Bringing ourselves to the crowds or to the people or to anyone else's, whether it's ourselves in other days, good or bad, or within other crowds and other bodies in the world. I am going to go ahead and move to my lecture performance. Bear with me, keep in mind this is a lecture performance. I'm a performance artist. I am definitely not going to be teaching you on here. Maybe, maybe not. I am definitely going to be sharing with you a lot, or not very a lot, but I'm going to go with you throughout many of the very important and exciting experiences I've managed to have in my life. For the ones who read already, what I'm going to be talking about is that I'm going to be talking about the Palestinian queer history. Now, when we say history, for the ones who didn't do their homework, history is basically telling, at least how I interpret it, is that when telling my own story, as in HER, her story. I'm not a historian, but I'm definitely, I have a story, and I am so happy and I'm so glad that you all were able to join us and to join me today to celebrate, in a way, kind of coming back to having this kind of opportunity with you all. And for the ones who were sending me messages, so are you in New York? Are you in New York, honey? I'm not. I'm in Haifa physically. Mentally, I'm all over the world with you all. So yeah, and that's how we're doing it. I'm going to go ahead and go to the presentation. If you have any notes, if you have any questions, please write them down. I'm going to try and be as brief as possible, and I'll see you after the presentation. All righty. Let's get going. Okay. So, Queer Palestinian History by Madame Tayoush. I'm live with you guys here from Haifa. Madame Tayoush is basically one of my major personas that have been accompanying me throughout the years. She will be talking to you in the Q&A later on today. Sometimes she's me, but she's tired today. So I, Elias, decided to go on and start the talk today, and she will be joining you for the Q&A. She's better doing that. I am better with talking and with telling my story than her. Don't tell her I said that. So her story begins at a small and very quiet village in the far upper Galilee in Palestine. It all started from a very small village. It's called Tarshiha, from a very religious one, where religion was one of the major things that told her, what is the story of humanity? Where is she? Who is she? And what is it we're living for? Then she was told she's a male. Okay, she said, Yalla, we'll live with that. But is she a male? Who knows? She needed to explain it to herself. But then they told her, you're a man. She was, Ya Allah ya alaykum, shway shway. Then she kept going. They told her, you live in a heteronormative society. She had no idea what is that even at the time. She was bullied. She was called Banuti, Banuti as girly in English. She was called Bisbarri, like a wild cat when she was younger. Why? Because she was pissed. She used to love Barbie dolls, you know? That's just what she loved to do, you know? Barbie dolls. Who doesn't love Barbie dolls? But, you know, they told her she's a man, she's a male. She couldn't do that. But she kept going. She was very confused within what she does not supposed to do. She was shy. But she knew love. She was taught love. That's basically the glue that gave her the strength every and each time. She was conflicted about her sexuality. She didn't know what is sexuality. But then she started learning with the language. She left the village. She started moving around. She started learning what a language is, whether physical language or literal language. She started learning about where she does come from. What is Palestine? What is Palestine? You know? Now, to just show you a little bit where she comes from, this is the bigger map of Palestine, where she comes from. When you call it, some call it Israel. It's occupied Palestine. That's what she would tell you, you know. Tarshiha is right here, very close to the Lebanese border, where basically it's the closest city, it's Akka. Tarshiha was basically the last village that was occupied in 28th of October 1948, and she was not born at the time, but when she realized that Tarshiha had gone through this, she started asking her grandparents, her parents, what has happened in here? And of course, they were terrified, and they're still terrified about what would happen if Ilyas would know about what happened to their bigger family. Well, for the ones who don't know, I'm going to show you a very, very little historics about Palestine. So Palestine basically in 1947 was recognized as a bigger as it used to be. And then within the years, you could see how basically, for the ones who think that there is a Palestine nowadays, well, let me tell you something. Gaza is under siege for over 10 years. And the West Bank actually has more than tens of settlements that are being protected by the Israeli military. So where is Palestine? What is Palestine? Now, Ilyas and Madame Tayyush have looked for it for years, and they started looking with it within what would people say about it? What does people know? This was the first question that Ilyas asked himself. What does people know about Palestine? Where is Palestine? So before I go back a little bit with history, I'm going to actually be showing you one of the very interesting things I've actually participated in. It's called the Queer Scream, Sarkha Queeri. I am already recognizing some of you on here actually, and the crowds were in it. And the last one, it happened last September. And I'm going to show you a very short video with it. Bear with me.
الكويريات غضبانات للتحرير غضبانات للتحرير غضبانات للتحرير غضبانات للتحرير ونزلنا تحت الياسين غضبانات للتحرير غضبانات للتحرير غضبانين للتحرير غضبانين للتحرير وبدنا ثورة شعبية بدنا ثورة شعبية ونقضي على الذكورية ثورة
So going back to September 2020, we're talking about the pandemic happening, and queers from all around Palestine have gathered to talk about freedom, to talk about screaming for the queer revolution. Now, I'm going to share with you a few of the sentences that you are hearing for the ones who are not non-Arab speakers. We're talking about angry until we are angry until we get our freedoms. Queer scream freedom for our revolution. And those young people are basically, we're talking about students, we're talking about all different kind of age have gathered here in Haifa. If you can notice, you can even see the Baha'i Gardens in the main street, one of the main streets in Haifa, where we gathered and we walked through with the Palestine flag, with the pride flag, and with very, very clear scream for the queer freedom. Queer freedom and the queers is not, it's not less important. It's not, you know, when we talk about the freedom in Palestine, we talk about, we're fighting oppressions, and fighting oppressions is not just fighting the oppressor, but it is fighting all the kind of oppressors that we have around us. That's how I see it, at least. And unless we do that, we won't be able to be free. We can't just fight for one freedom and forget that there is other freedoms. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about going back in history. One of the main two organizations in Palestine that still exist and fought for the LGBTQI plus freedoms. The first one is Al-Qaws. Al-Qaws was basically, when it started in 2001 as part of the Open House, which is an Israeli LGBT organization in Jerusalem. It in 2007, it basically went on its own. A little bit after, actually, it decided to have its own independence, and it left the Open House, and it started growing and working within the Palestinian community. Al-Qaws have done tremendous job. They're called Al-Qaws for Sexual and Gender Diversity in Palestinian Society. They have done tremendous and amazing job within the academic sphere. And I'm going to show you one of its artistic things that it's been done, which I actually participated in myself. It was a music album. It's called غني عن التعريف, Singing Sexuality, and I played in their teaser videos. This one is basically from a very small sketch from the song of Haya Zaatri, the singer. The name of the song is Manakir Nail Polish. Enjoy.
في الصبح بكير منحط بودرة ومناكير مندور عن معنى قوانين بدها تكسير منقول الله كبير منشكي ما حدا بيسمعنا حاسي حالي بتحرك لحالي بزحمة سير عم تخنق خيالي عقلي عم تنتبع تمشي بالشارع أسهم بتأشر بس
So this project is actually called Singing Sexuality. In this song, Haya was talking about very briefly when we wake up in the early morning, we put some powder on, we put some makeup on, we put some nail polish, and we look for a meaning. We ask ourselves, what are the rules that are happening around us? Can we break them? Are we allowed to break them? If so, how we can do so? And it goes on and on. It's a whole album. This is one of the songs. This is a very small part of the song. This is not the whole song. And there is many few songs that it was part of a bigger initiative of Al-Qaws that was basically released in an album here in Haifa, actually a few years ago. If you go on the internet and write Singing Sexuality on YouTube, El Qaws, you will find the whole album. It's very interesting to hear, to listen to. Enjoy. We keep going. El Qaws has done many work, as I said before, and a lot of it was actually academic work within quite many scholars, such as Judith Butler, who's actually been here a few years ago, and she actually participated in a group of academics who came from the US and who toured around Palestine and saw what's going on in the West Bank, especially, and saw what's the politics of Palestine and what are we dealing on, not just as Palestinians, but mainly as queers. Moving on, I'm going to be moving to the second LGBT organization. I know Palestine is small, but we have two LGBTQI plus organizations. The second one is called Aswat. By the way, El Qaws means rainbow. Aswat, the second organization, means voices. Aswat, Palestinian Feminist Center for Gender and Sexual Freedoms, was an LGBT organization that also was actually established in 2003, and it was registered as an organization in 2018. It's been working since 2003, and it's been led by very powerful women such as Ghadir al-Shafi'i, Rawda Murqos, and more. And Aswat has also done and still doing a very amazing work. I've participated in many of their works. One of the major artsy things that they have done and they're doing is Quoz Film Festival. One of the logos of Aswat is basically حقي أن أعيش أن أختار أن أكون. My right to live, to choose, to be. Yes, as simple as it sounds. And in Arabic, it's even, and it sounds, in my eyes, it sounds nicer, probably because I'm an Arab native speaker. حقي أن أعيش أن أختار أن أكون. So Aswat did, for example, the first queer Palestinian film festival, where it started in 2016. Their fourth edition was in 2019, and ever since, because of the pandemic, obviously it stopped. I'm going to be showing you a teaser video that was shot for Quoz, but before that, I'm going to show you my participation within an exhibition I've done at Aswat, where you could see me inside. I spoke about my queer practice and how crucial for me as a queer person, as a non-binary person as well, to basically not just practice my own freedoms, but to share it and share it in safe spaces in order for us to be heard and to hear each other and to understand and have the discussions around it, to practice our freedom. If what you see in the picture is basically a work of myself, it's a cut out work. I don't know how much you can understand from it, but actually I made it in New York, the work around. There is a picture in the middle of two women hugging. That's in the middle of the picture of the photograph that I cut out. It was taken within my performance at Aswat. And then I'm going to be moving to Quoz, the Palestinian Queer Film Festival. I'm going to show you in 2018, I participated in their teaser, and I'm going to show it to you. for the ones who watched RuPaul's Drag Race, Henny, I Shrunk My Queens. Have you seen me shrunk at the video at the very end of it? I've done it before, RuPaul. I'm just kidding. Anyways, moving on. One of the very interesting things that I've been participating at with Aswat throughout the years is a queer party that has been happening in Haifa. It's called Queeri Awi. Queeri Awi meaning I'm very queer. It's titled Queer Dance Party and Shows. We've been having multiple DJs from around Palestine, where they could, like, they're actually from the LGBT Palestinian community or allies of the queer Palestinian community, or a lot of them are actually DJs that have been not showing their work only in Palestine, but practicing their art and their DJs around the world. And I've been hosting the show for many years now. And it's obviously it's been stopped because of the pandemic, but this is one of the major things where we could enjoy and have our drag shows expressed throughout, telling our stories with our shows and with our drag showing. And by the way, we haven't had only drag shows with the Queer Awi, we also had musical shows. Singers came and sang, dancer came and danced, and many more. We're talking about safe space oriented parties where there is crew of volunteers from the organization who had to make sure also that the space of the place where we're doing that party at is as safe as possible. Moving on, I'm going to be moving to Pink Watching Israel. Pink Watching Israel is an initiative that both Aswat and Al-Qaws have been also involved at. Pink Watching Israel was basically a group of political people who participated in a joint call in 2019 and made the Pink Watching Israel. Pink Watching Israel, it comes from the word pink washing for the ones that are less familiar with. Pink washing is a term that basically talks about, it comes from the word brainwash for the ones who don't know, but it's technically refers to, in its meaning, and it's in this local political sphere, to what the Israeli government has been doing while using the LGBT QI plus rights in order to legitimize what it is doing in Palestine, under what that is living under apartheid. To make the idea more clear in your heads, you know, this is one of the pictures that I really like, which basically it really shows a very clear and very honest situation of what has been happening around in here. We're talking about an apartheid wall. We're talking about detainees. We're talking about a military state. We're talking about home demolition. We're talking about not just home demolitions, arrestees. We're talking about thousands of people that are not having their very basic human rights, while Israel or the Israeli government is basically promoting itself as an Israeli and a country of haven. They're saying it's the only LGBT country in the Middle East. It's the only democracy in the Middle East, while everything else is happening around. And I really ask myself, as a queer artist, activist, not just Palestinian, but a human, what does that even mean? You know, because freedom of expression, you know, even for me as a queer person, not like, I'm not even talking about the Palestinian, being anywhere, you know, being queer is still in many other places also, even in countries that respect or that have rights for LGBT people, it is not, it is still condemned in many spaces and in many spheres. And I ask myself, what is, like, what can I do each and every time in order to you know, fight this oppression? And while living in Palestine, it's very hard to really see this pink washing happening while Tel Aviv is still promoted as an LGBTQI plus haven. And I keep asking myself, so what else are we doing in order to really protect ourselves? Because for me, at least, maybe as a queer, it's there, but how about me being Palestinian? So does that change? Would that change in their minds when I say I'm a Palestinian, I'm not a queer? How about we mix both, seeing a Palestinian and queer? Would that work? What are you really proud of? This is a very interesting also look. If you got the opportunity to visit Palestine one day, just go for a walk or just take a car and go by yourself and just look around, don't listen to anyone, and look what you will see around and see it for yourself. That's why I always, if you have the privilege to come here, why not? Because many Palestinian refugees don't have the privilege. If you get it after the pandemic, get on an airplane and go, do it for yourself, because that would be the best way for you to see it. Going on, I'm going to carry on and move a little bit and talk about my own experience within my practice. So Elias and Madame Tayush has been having a lot of fun with art. I get the privilege to be at the Cooper Union School of Art in New York City. I'm sure I have a lot of New York residents in here who maybe they know, I guess, or they don't know. I got the opportunity and the privilege to have a one semester studies at the Cooper Union School of Art, where I practiced my own practice as a Palestinian queer and an artist. I've done a tremendous work where I talked about my not just Palestinian identity, but my queer identity in a very explicit and complicated way. So, for example, this is at 41 Cooper Square, for the one who's been there, at the engineering building, where you could see me standing. You could see pictures that has been hanging. Those pictures basically has been all cut by hand. They're all selfies that were taken prior days before, where I had makeup on. I had this makeup being taken away from my face after printing those pictures with a knife. And then I put them in the air between 7 floors. I named the work quality assurance, and I asked myself how I could give a person who is not necessarily, know of or not necessarily understand seeing makeup on a man's or male's body when judging it, and how he cannot judge it if he looks at it. So I really experienced with doing quality assurance, and I did this show in New York. Afterwards, I got the opportunity to visit and show Existence is Resistance at both Harvard University and MIT. When I say Existence is Resistance, it's something that happened, and it's still happening to me, not just here in Palestine, everywhere in the world. As a non-binary person, it is so crucial for me to, some days I just feel so good about my body, and I feel so good about putting this lipstick on, and ask myself, should I, say to myself, no, you're not supposed to do that, because, you might be hurt, someone might hurt you. And so sometimes I do take the risk, but then it ends up being a way of resistance, because in many ways it makes a lot of people basically stare or give comments. And I ask myself, are they allowed to give comments? How can we change that? Am I supposed to be just listening to them? Am I supposed to be shutting down? Am I supposed to be shutting myself off in order to do so? And it's questions I'm basically sharing with you. It's been a rough journey, but an interesting one. I got this a possibility to actually talk about this work at Harvard University, and where I really am honored to have the possibility to have my voice been heard in such a big institution. This was taken in Harvard at the Middle Eastern Cultural Center, where I had this 1 hour and a half talk, which was very, very exciting to be part of. Afterwards, I had the possibility to go on, and the year after, I was invited to Brown University to a conference called Sexualities and Queer Imaginaries to talk about gender. Now, the question is gender. This is one of the major, this is a picture of me at Brown University. And the question of gender has been always accompanying me. What is gender? Is gender just what we were told, or can we basically tell ourselves a new story, regardless to where we are, how old are we? Can we change gender at some time? And I'm talking about gender. I'm not talking about sexual. I'm not talking about the biological. I'm talking about gender in being a woman or a man. Is a woman and a man are the only genders? And those are questions that I got to share and talk about in very interesting spaces, such as at Brown University. Afterwards, I got the chance to actually show my my work and be participating at the World Pride Parade in 2017. 2017, I got this possibility, which I am so happy that it took me to the World Pride Parade, and not just to walk around, but to talk about pinkwashing. One of the major things that I believe drag is giving me the possibility, not just as it says drag as in dressed as a girl, but to really talk it loud about what is happening around us. What is it so important to fight for our freedoms, and how can we do that? And to get such an amazing group that I had the possibility to join and to participate within the World Pride Parade was quite a blast in 2017. I'm going to show you a picture with the outfit. The ones that are familiar are basically familiar with the kafia, the Palestinian traditional kafia. This is actually a custom made that was made for me in order to walk it through the streets of Madrid, which was a terrific experience. Now, before we get to the final part of my presentation, I'm going to be asking questions. But before asking questions to you all, I'm going to show you one of the a picture of a work of Jumana Manna, a Palestinian artist. It's called The Sketch of Manners, and she has done a very interesting work, where basically she did kind of a retrospective, or let's say a work that she kind of relived, but not a role, but a real story of Alfred Rock. Alfred Rock was a Palestinian, the most, let's say, he was the richest Palestinian in the 40s, before 48, before the Nakba, who used to be a merchant, a very famous merchant in Palestine. He used to live in Jaffa, and he used to do masquerade parties, secret masquerade parties for the bourgeois communities and aristocratic, where they only could join those parties. Now, why am I telling all of this? He used to do all those parties. He never was married, and actually he was known for being queer, and that was even before 48. Now, I'm showing you this because I also was I happened to have the pleasure and the privilege to be actually the mistress of Alfred Rock here in the video. while we actually did this piece of work. And you can watch it, The Sketch of Manners, on Jumana Manna''s website. And by showing you this picture, I ask myself is that how much of the history that already has been written inside the history books was not told. There is so much that we has not explored yet. There is so much that we actually don't know about. And I ask myself as an artist, what is my job? Is it to explore? But I'm not a historian, so how can I actually do that? And I think Jumana has done a very beautiful work by doing so with her piece of work, A Sketch of Manners. And I invite you all to watch it. It's very well done cinematographically for the ones who watch it. So before I finish, I'm going to show you a video that I've made to give you some thoughts. I hope you like it. It's an 11-minute video. It's a video that I've done a few years ago. It's called Homecoming Queens. It's a performance video. It was shot by phones, and Osmarinov, my friend, shot it with me. It was shot on an airplane and inside Ben Gurion Airport. I'm going to leave you with this for 11 minutes, and I'll get back to you afterwards. Enjoy. Where we head?
Hello, how are you? Police passport, please.
Yeah.
Where you come from?
Stockholm.
Stockholm. This is the first time in Israel?
בשלב הזה לעזוב את הטלפון? יש לכם גם תיקים קטנים? אפשר את התיק ראש שם? זה שלך? הלו. כן, כן, בוא. אפשר בבקשה לעזוב את הטלפון פעם שנייה? כן, בסדר.
שלום! מה עשית בינתיים? איפה הוא?
עכשיו התחלתי.
טוב.
רק עכשיו אני מתחיל.
חברים, מה השמות? עוז ואליאס? עוז אליאס. טוב. שאלה מאוד פשוטה. מאיפה באתם?
שטוקהולם.
מי?
שטוקהולם.
מה אתם עושים שם?
פיילוט. במסגרת של ערב אמנות.
דרקווין?
כן.
אוקיי. משתמשים ב-GBL? קטמי? אתה לא יודע מה זה? GBL. שפת העם סם האונס. מכיר אותו? אתה לא יודע? פעם לא שמעת? אתה?
אני שמעתי.
לא, כי הוא מופרט.
תאמן, אני...
אתה לא מכיר את הסוג סם הזה? אה?
לא.
אז אתה לא דובר אמת. אתה יכול להגיד שאתה מכיר ולא. מה לעשות?
לא, אני יודע שיש סוגי סמים.
לא, בוא נעשה סדר, בסדר? אולי אתה שחקן על במה, אבל אני בא עם ידע מסוים. כן, אבל... מה זה? זה לא מתאים.
אני לא...
ידוע ומוכר ואתם לא הולכים להכחיש שהקהילה שלכם שאין לי שום בעיה עם זה, משתמשים באופן קבוע בסם שנקרא GHB ו-GBL, נכון או לא? נכון. וקטמין, נכון או לא? נכון. יש פה? יש לכם? אתם משתמשים בזה? אם אתם מתנסים בזה בארץ, משתמשים בזה בארץ, מעבר, מעניין אותי. אמיתי, לא מעניין אותי. מעבר לזה, יש לכם פה סוג של סם כלשהו? זה של מי? שלך. בוא תראה.
ايش خايف؟ التشيك كنترول
ايش نفسر لهم ليش احنا هيك؟
ما في حاجة نفسر لهم اشي
نسكت
اسكت قول لهم شو هيك احنا هيك بس شو المشكلة؟ في مشكلة؟ في اشي غير القانون؟ لا
המוחצנות זה דבר בכוונה? שואל באמת, אני חייב לסקרן.
شجاعة
הוא שואל. אם המוחצנות זה דבר מכוון או במטרה להסתיר משהו אחר. השאלה היא שאלה פשוטה. אם המוחצנות, או זה רגילים לעלי עקב, זה מוחצנות.
זה היום שלנו.
זה מוחצנות, אם זה שגרה או זה משהו מעבר, בשביל שירחיק אותנו למקום אחר. שלי זה מיינסטרים. אתם לא מיינסטרים, אתם קיצוני. השאלה אם זה להעיף אותנו למקום אחר, לחשוב על משהו אחר. כן או לא? יש משהו מוסתר?
לא, אתה יכול לבדוק, תמשיך. אתה רוצה
בסדר. והלהקה שלכם מוכרת גם בשלושה? שחלק מהופעה חלק הסעודה הזאת תהיה קטנה. לא, כי חסר לי פה זה. שיניים, משחק שיניים, דברים כאלה, זה שמה?
שמתי את זה. לא, אין פה מברשות שיניים, משחק שיניים.
שחור, 4.5 ימים, בלי משחק שיניים, מברשת שיניים, לא נראה לי.
משחק שיניים לא הבאתי, הבאתי משחק שיניים, ואני... צודק, אני
נוסע עם איזשהו פרט פאוליטיקה כזה או אחר.
תראה, אני בטוח שאם זה לא כאן, אז אולי זה כאן. לא יכול להיות שעליתי את זה למטוס, אני לא מעלה.
במזוודה הזאת מצאתם משהו כזה? שם פה, במזוודה הזאת? עוד לא הגעתי לזה.
זה לוק. הנה, פה אני יש שם. הנה, זה מברשת שיניים. כן, זה שלי.
טוב.
זה שאתה רואה, יש לנו פה מיליון ואחת דברים.
אלה זה נכון.
אצל בנות, אתה לא בת, אתה בן. מה?
טוב, את רוצה את זה? כתבי לי, אני אביא לך. אחרי זה לך כתבי.
לא תלך. אתה מתקדם כמו שאתה? אתה מתקדם כמו שאתה? נכון. נכון? שאני אהיה אחות גדולה ותקבל את העצה. בהצלחה ללכת. כן, ללכת עם כזה גובה.
איפה אתה גדל? אח של עידו? אתה
מכיר את עידו?
אתה אח של עידו, נכון? יואל, אבא שלך.
לא.
איך קוראים לו?
מאיפה הבאת את הפרטים האלה? דני.
דני. הוא היה מהנדס העיר או משהו כזה, נכון?
לא, זה יואל.
יואל, זאת שלך.
כן.
לכן הכלב עף מהחלון.
כן.
מה?
מאיפה אתה יודע את הדברים האלה?
איזה כן, מה? כן, זה אף מהחלום.
היה לו כלב שהתאבד.
כלבה.
כלבה שהתאבדה. נזכתה מהחלון. היא לא נמלטה, אבל אחר כך הרגו אותה, כי היא נפצעה קשה. קומה רביעית, נכון?
לא הרגו אותה, היא חיה עוד 20 שנה.
אליאס? אתה איפה גדלת?
מה לא חושב?
תמשיכה? דרוזי? לא. מוסלמי? נוצרי? מה?
אני חייב לענות.
לא.
נראה לי לפי השם אתה זה ברור.
אליאס?
אתה צריך
אליאס
להתבייש.
נוצרי.
לא, אני לא מתבייש, אבל אולי זה העבר שלי.
עוז, איך קוראים לאבא?
נוצרי?
עוז?
דן.
דן?
דן.
הכתובת שלך בארץ?
מה זה שטויות? אתה צריך להתבייש.
שניאור פלג אחד.
שניאור פלג אחד?
כן.
אתה גם בשניאור פלג אחד? כתובת.
כתובת מגורים שלך.
לא, שלך. זה ישראלי. אתה יודע מי הוא היה?
לא?
ממשלת בריטניה. זה היה בתחילת שנות ה...
כן, בנימין זה ישראלי.
Now, as you saw, both of us had Israeli IDs. Even though we did that, we had to go through this very casual, you could say, interrogation. And before I finish, I wanted to just talk to you about a few of the acknowledgements that I've collected throughout the roads. From where it all started, at least with her history, few of the acknowledgements that I've been through are, instead of religion, I started relying on spirituality. You know, there's so much in spirituality of the fact that we're all spirits beyond the physical. However, when thinking about it, our bodies are so sacred and so important, and they have so much to it, not just how it looks like. Being non-binary and how much it actually enriched not just my practice, but the questions that I started asking myself when confronting with people telling me, why do you look this way? Why do you look that way? What's wrong with you? Nowadays, I look at it and I'm like, nothing is wrong with me. I'm just genderqueer. What about that? Do you know what is genderqueer? I do see being a genderqueer as a way of resistance, as a way of basically paving my own way inside a very cruel world but looking at its brighter side, reclaiming those those words that I was bullied with, in order to actually start pulling the looking at the full half of the glass. At the end of the day, nothing lasts, no one lasts. We're just here to have our moment, and at least each in our way. I've gotten to realize how much different is actually being different is a blessing. Maybe I thought that's different to think this way, but at this point, I'm just realizing, and I'm very grateful to look at it this way. Exploration, there is so much unknown that needs to be explored that we don't know about. And I'm there to talk about it, to acknowledge it, and to ask more and more questions. Intersectionality is so important. Looking outside of the box, outside of my own box. Once I asked myself, so I got out of the closet years ago, but I still get asked the question again and again, are you in the closet? And I asked myself, so did I get out of the closet and I entered another one? This whole idea of boxes, like we are here on the Zoom. What is it with us, with closets? What are we looking at closets so much? I mean, like, is there a fetish closet that I don't know of? If there, please tell me. But I really in and all about asking more and more questions, and the more question I have, I'm finding, and the more unknown I have around me, I'm finding more interest. And not just rocking the way my non-binariness as a queer and Palestinian rolling, but as a human being at the end of and at the end of it, as a human being, as an artivist, as an activist, as a person of color, and as a motherfucking human rocker, because that's what I am, or at least that's what I'm trying to be. By the way, this is a wet plate photograph. It was taken just a week before I left New York. When I used to live in New York, it was a very fascinating city. I got to experience so many of my non-gender binariness, and I just lived like this half and half for about half a year. And I'm going to leave you with the sentence that I wrote to myself that I keep reading every single morning. Difference is not a threat, but a thread where we all are potentially connected. And thank you. Hi.